are
Hi,
you?
Claire. I'm
Hello.
good, thank you very much. Nice
Nice
to
to
hear
see
you.
you. I hear you built a new studio. Are you in there yet?
Yes, yeah, nearly finished. The plaster's come this week, so that's been a labour of love. So that's been great over lockdown to be able to get that and finally get in there and teach. So I'll be teaching in there shortly in the next probably another month, and any of the Zoom classes will be in there. So that will
Oh,
be good.
wonderful. So we just thought we'd ask you a few questions about your work, really to inspire us all. I know that I've been on a couple of your classes and I've absolutely loved them. And I keep practicing in my own little studio. But we've got some
Good.
classes coming up and we just sort of wanted to see a bit of your work and hear a bit about your background. So I think you started loving the love of wool at a very early age, didn't you?
Yes,
Um,
yes. I was 13 when I bought my first sheep, two sheep and their three lambs because my horse had too much grass. And basically, since then, I have spent my entire life with wool in one way or another. Studying agriculture, I ran a knitwear business and a sheep farm with several hundred sheep, and then getting into millinery and starting my felt making business almost 30 years ago.
when did you become an artist? I mean, when did you, feel you could attach that title to yourself?
I think what happened about 10, 15 years ago, I was teaching felt. I decided at that point, I'd never had any formal training. So I failed my art O level. So those out there that think that they can't do it, they can, because I failed my art O level and didn't go into textiles, and that's why I went into agriculture. So I needed something to push me, and I decided to study at Winchester, doing a stitch textile degree, and that really opened my eyes up, and there was a lot of art and that in the background. So that's when I really realized that I wanted to take my felt making to the art stage rather than just making little pieces or wearables, etc.
I know you exhibit all over. I mean, you're, well known now for your textile pieces and very large pieces. You've
Yes,
got
I go large, which isn't easy in a small studio, hence building another one. I exhibit, yes, all over the country, Canada, etc. It's not easy having large pieces, but at least the felt is light, so it can be transported. But I like working with the natural raw fleeces of the British wool, so that's what I do with my work. I work with local fleeces, with local farmers, because all through my life I've been passionate about wool. So I'm trying to to show everybody how sustainable wool can be. I think we've forgotten that now, and how we can reutilize wool. A lot of farmers are throwing all their fleeces away.
how often do sheep get sheared in order to, provide wool that you can dye?
Mostly once a year, early summer, but some breeds twice a year. You get some breeds that naturally shed their own fleece. We're very lucky in the UK. We've got over 60 breeds of known breeds of sheep, more than any other country in the world. So, I'm passionate about utilising the fleeces and their characteristics, and every sheep and every fleece, a bit like the hair on our heads, they're all different and they all work completely differently. And I love the alchemy of it. But
And
what
I
I tend to teach,
get hold of, I don't know what you call it,
raw fleece.
wool.
Most local farmers, especially around here, if they don't know what to do with their fleeces, they tend to chuck them on the compost heap, throw them away, burn them, which is sacrilege. Unfortunately, these days, wool is not worth even the shearing costs. So if you put a call out for fleece, you can get raw fleece. But it takes a lot of time to process, to wash, and to card, and to preparation. So for teaching purposes, I tend to use merino fleece, which is very soft, fine. For those that about wool, it's like your merino jumper. It's very soft and fine, and it felts quite relatively easy. So that's what we use for teaching purposes.
Wonderful. And what would you call your? I mean, you are an artist, but would you perhaps at the beginning would you have called it a craft or an art, or is it?
Yeah, well,
I never know
that
between the two.
that debate could go on all day. We could have a whole day just discussing the ins and outs of whether felt making is a craft or an art. But I say I'm a craftsman. I'm a member of the Society of Designer Craftsmen and Heritage Crafts, and I make art. So that's how I see it, because my work is wall and installations, and so therefore I make art with my craft, and you have to be, it takes years to develop, and I'm always learning. You never stop learning.
That's a good way of doing it, to making art with your craft. So your pieces are generally very large, aren't they? You hang them from sort of the ceiling down, or
yep. Yes.
Have you got any there you can show us? I know it's difficult probably.
I know, because I'm sat in my little room here so I can get internet. But there's a piece here that was meant to be in the exhibition in Cumbria in Farfield Mill, and obviously we didn't have. That's now postponed for 18 months. But I've got a series of 3, and you can see if it's about 1.5 meters.
Wow.
Very thick. It's called Fisher. There's 3 of them. There's a series of 3 in a long row that's sort of 4.5, 5 meters long and wide. And I like looking at I get inspiration from the rocks, the land around us, and these were taken from drawings of what's below the ground and the strata and that below the ground. So it's all used with fleece that's come within a few miles of here, and using several different types of technique. It's very thick, so solid. It's about 1 centimetre thick, and takes a lot of work.
I'm sure it does. So I was going to ask you, how do you plan your pieces? So you've suggested that you love the land and the landscape, and then do you think in colour, or do you think in shape, or do you?
No, I tend to sketch.
I tend to
sketch. I do a lot of sketching. When I did I'm quite well known for my large scale stones, my monoliths that I've done, and I would always take a sketchbook and sketch the stones. And even though I start out with a drawing and a design, I'm just about to do some work, a new piece that I've got to do for a commission, and I do a sketch, and then and they tend to be very simplistic sketches, but that's how I base my ideas on. And then, although I have something in my head, the wool and the whole process, it has a mind of its own, and it evolves, and that's what I love, and the alchemy of it. Even though I know what I'm doing and I know what to expect, I don't, and that's what I love about it.
What about colours?
So
I'm going to do it in colours.
Yeah, I tend to be very monochrome. Obviously using the natural colours of the sheep. I do my own dyeing, but I always have a little hint of some sort of colour. So just that hint of colour, but I tend to work mainly in monochrome. There's a piece here that is this is based on cells under a microscope, and this has got colour. This is a large piece, and it's layered with fabrics. I use a lot of, you can't quite see up that way. Oh no, it's upside down. I use recycled fabrics, silks and other fabrics, which is called nunnefelting. And the fibres, what happens with the fibres, they migrate through the fabrics and pull down and produce sort of interesting textures. And I'm all about texture, so my work's more about texture. So although I do work in colour, that's about the maximum sort of colours that I work with. A limited palette.
Lovely though. And what sort of have you got sort of artists that inspire you, have been your heroes, or?
Yes, yeah. I've probably got 2 or 3. So Joseph Beuys, he was a German. He was all about performance art with felt. He tended to use commercial felt, but it was all about the felt that used you to keep you warm, because felt was always used originally many centuries ago as a utilitarian. It was always meant to clothe or house us or protect us, and now we're using it, as I am, in wall art. The other person I love is Eva Hesse, and she was all about the process. She never worried whether her work deteriorated. She worked with a lot of materials that were always going to deteriorate, and she sadly died quite early, so all her work is now deteriorating. And excuse me, and wool is a bit like that. Eventually the wool will all go back down into the land, and I've just done this huge 5 meter cord that's been wrapped around a tree, and the idea is reconnecting and going back into the earth again, and decomposing back into the earth. So that's Eva Hesse. And the third person that I really admire is Magdalena Abakanovic. She's a weaver, a humongous, great big installations, bigger than I make. So I've always been interested in weaving. So maybe that might come into some of my work at a later date.
Interesting. So anyway, you've got some courses coming up, which I'm interested in being part of as well. One is online and one is in the studio. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yes, well, we had a very successful, didn't we, month before, Zoom online. Yep. I've always been hesitant about Zoom running anything internet and online, but I can see how it works. It's very accessible. So that was a very successful. Following on from that, we're going to be doing a series of 4 Zoom classes. And so I will take you through, it's painting with fibers. So I will take you through all the different types of techniques that are involved. We'll have an exercise each week that you'll have time to spend on, and you'll build up your body of work. You can ask questions non-stop of me the entire time, so you always get a one-to-one, because even when we're not on Zoom, I'm happy to answer questions. So there's a whole series of 4 that will develop you as with your felt and your art, and towards making up a picture collage, either painting with the fibers, making pre-felts, which are half-made bits of felt, and understanding how the fibers work. So that's the Zoom class that's happening the week after next, the start of it, a series of 4. And then following on from that, I'm back in the studio with you, aren't I? And that's another 5 classes, I think that's correct, isn't it? Yes. And we'll be doing the similar things, but in greater depth. That we'll be doing in the Zoom classes, so we can actually have fun, and you bounce off. The lovely thing about doing classes is that you can bounce off each other, and felt making is a very tactile procedure, but you can actually see. I was amazed actually on the last one how well it worked, and seeing people's work even via Zoom.
I know you're very generous with providing all the equipment and materials and things, and in the studio I can see how that happens. But you also provide a wonderful kit, don't you, that you send to people if they want to partake in the Zoom?
Yep, absolutely. So I can pack up everything you need. Everything from the soap down to the bottle, down to the fibres, down to the roller blind we use, are very accessible. Or alternatively, if you've got your own materials, I can just send a materials list out, so that you've got everything ready. And the nice thing is that you don't need, I mean, I'm just sat in here in my one of my rooms. You don't need a lot of space. That's the lovely thing about felt making. And you don't need a lot of space. You don't need to have a lot of knowledge to start and experiment and to play. And felt making is all about experimenting. But understanding the fundamentals is imperative.
Very mindful, isn't it, Sarah? Because I know I've been doing mine at the kitchen table while other things are going on behind me, which is wonderful. So we're all looking forward to it. Yeah.
Good. It's a very tactile. You get very addictive, don't you?
You do. I agree with that. Anyway, thanks so much, Sarah. Lovely to talk to you, and looking forward to seeing you on Zoom next week.
Brilliant. Look forward to it.